Kia ora everyone. Hey, just a quick note. Think about joining the project team and become a member of a really cool project. I'll leave some links in the description at the end. Okay? Now, hi-ho, let's get on with my show. Kia ora DC subbies. Welcome to Dipshit 101. In today's lesson, we're going to look at a prime example of what we call the spoilt DC.
The man accused of killing and then dismembering his parents spoke in court today. The crime happened in 2016. Joel Guy Jr.
Yep, that's his name, Joel Guy Jr. Oh my God, this guy sets a standard of stupidity, but he is a lazy, spoilt little boy. Well, not anymore, but he was, and he's a perfect example of what a narcissist truly is. His crime is patricide, which is the killing of one's parents. Now, when you actually get a good gaze at him, this is what he looks like. Here's another photo, and another photo. You can see the consistent pattern here. He's really butt ugly. Now, if you had to choose what his parents would look like, some of you may be thinking, well, I'd say Ozzy Osbourne had sex with Meatloaf, and this was his love child. But you'd be wrong, completely wrong. This is them here, a good-looking couple. His parents were apparently the nicest people you could possibly meet, like really decent, caring parents with a spoilt little ugly DC of a son. But anyway, this was the result. Joel Guy Jr., pretty boy. Now, let's get on with this lesson. Let's go meet our brilliant genius DC. But first, of course, the backstory. This loving couple are called the Guys. That's Joel Guy Sr. and his lovely wife, Lisa. Now, Joel Sr. here, he was married before and he had 3 kids. They were all girls and they're all beautiful. And him and his new missus, Lisa, they had one offspring. This offspring. Out of all the sperm, the millions of sperm could have made it to that egg. It just happened to be this one. Joel Guy Jr. Now here's the thing, you see, because he was the only son, he was pampered, especially by Lisa, his mum. Old DC here, he didn't even lift a finger all the way through his life. He got everything paid for, everything he wanted, just pampered, spoilt, absolutely rotten. His mum was actually working a couple of jobs, like a couple of jobs extra, just so she could pay for his upkeep. So anyways, Joel Guy Jr., Meatloaf's love child, he was living and studying in Baton Rouge. Everything paid for by the blood, sweat and tears of his mum having to go to work for him. So old DC was just living it up. That was until 2016, when these guys decided, hey look man, it's time to retire. And that would mean that Junior's mum, Lisa, wasn't going to go working anymore and paying everything for him. So that meant that this spoilt little DC had to get a job. And that's not going to happen. Not with this DC. So what did Ozzy's offspring lookalike do? He came up with a plan. You know, one of those J for Genius plans. So one day in November, he put his evil little J for Genius action plan into play. And it is this plan, which makes this guy what he is, a complete and utter DC. You see, he did murder his old man, and then he waited for his ma to get home. She walked in, he then murdered her. So after murdering them both, now in his plan, he was going to get rid of the bodies. How was he going to get rid of the bodies? Oh, that's simple. Because old genius here was going to dismember and dissolve them in acid, like something right out of a B-grade movie. So according to the genius plan, he was just chopping up his parents and dissolving them in acid. And then while he's doing this and cleaning the house and making sure that it won't come back on him, he then decides, fuck it, I can't really be stuffed, this shit's too much hard work, and just left. He just left. Oh my God. Yeah. This truly is a narcissistic, spoilt little DC. So he left and went back to Baton Rouge. And it wasn't very long after that someone made a call to 50 and asked them to do a bit of a welfare check because they were wondering on where Lisa was. So the cops go around to these guys' houses. And there's no answer, so they go on in. And it's what they found inside in regards to evidence that they could use in court to convict someone. Because remember, Joel Guy Jr. is the smartest guy in his world. He doesn't believe he can get done at all, that he is going to get away with this. And it's what these cops found inside at the time when Joel Guy just got up and bailed is what is classic about showing this example of what a DC narcissist at this guy's level actually is. First thing is, when 5-0 goes in, is the smell. They can smell that there's something in the air, like a steam, as well as the smell of heavy detergent use. So they go to the stove, and on the stove's a pot, and on the pot it's on the boil, and it's all still on, like simmering. And so the cop pops the lid, and so the first thing they find is the mother's head being boiled on stove. That's what we'll start with. And that is horrific, absolutely horrific for anyone to do that to anyone. That's his son to his mum. Holy shit. That's what you call a real pussy. Anyways, I digress. What's next? Okay, well, 5-0 goes through the house and they find the treasure trove, baby. And all of it just sitting there exactly how he left it, and all of it evidence in court. And the DC here, he thinks that the cops won't get enough evidence from the house because he's done enough to get away with it. This is the genius of this DC. Evidence such as 2 giant tubs full of his parents and acid, the murder weapons, receipts with his fingerprints on them all over the place in regards to all the stuff that he bought to dismember his parents. And that's only some of it. And not just some of it, that's like the weak evidence. You see, old Brad Pitt's armpit here, he's one of those DCs that has to write everything down. You know, one of those geniuses. So anyways, you see, the old cops, they stumble across a backpack, and in that backpack there's a book. And in that book, there's 5 pages, and those 5 pages contain pure DC gold. You see, old wet Mogwai here, he didn't just write down what he needed to buy at the store to melt his mum and dad. No. He just didn't put down a step-by-step way in which he was going to do all this. No. Even better. Idiot here. This DC put in the motive. And like the mad Irishman always goes on about, it was all about the life insurance, setting himself up to be spoiled again and again. Truly a spoiled little DC. So with all of this evidence, circumstantial of course, pointing towards him, the cops then decide to go get DC. Now, I don't have that interrogation. It's unfortunate. I don't have that at the moment. But when I do, if you're a DC subby, you get to watch it. You get to watch it. And if you're a DC patron, you get to watch it with me. I'll talk to you about that afterwards. Let's get back to it. So let's jump forward. Let's jump right to the court case. Now, this is where we see this DC's narcissistic personality really shine. You see, someone with half a brain would think and know that there's so much evidence against you that you just plead guilty, because that would be the smart thing to do. And now let's reflect upon the name of this channel. And that's right, you see, that's right. This DC thinks that he can get off. And this is what makes this DC a perfect example of a narcissistic, spoiled little boy. This DC's arrogant knows no bounds. And one of the reasons why we know that is because, you see, this DC thinks that he's got such a shot at getting off that he's willing to gamble his life upon it. He was so sure that he actually petitioned the court that if he was to be found guilty, of which would never happen in a million years, that he would take the death penalty. That's how sure he was about it. I really wish the court would have stuck with that one. Now here's where I pull this DC's example together. You see, in my other life, or one of my other lives, I work alongside and sometimes, only sometimes, in conjunction with, because I don't particularly like them that much, lawyers in district and in high courts, and of course the clients. Now I know from those experiences exactly what has gone on here inside this court case in regards to this DC's lawyer. Oh, I have seen it many times before. And that is when they have a client like this DC, who is such a heavy narcissist that he believes that he is smarter than the lawyer, far smarter, because the lawyer's got more than half a brain, obviously. And his legal advice to this DC would be, the evidence is so overwhelming that it's in your best interest to plead guilty straight away. So you see, that would be taking the lawyer's advice, and also that would mean bowing down to people that he would have a slight against because they would obviously be smarter than him, and that would be the prosecution. And old Junior here isn't going to have a bar of that. So now the old lawyer's in a bit of a predicament. See, he's got to represent him for better or for worse. That's just the way it is, especially if you're a public defender. So what this lawyer's done, and done something of which I've seen many times before, and that is that the DC's right. He is the smartest guy. He is smarter than the lawyer. That he will follow DC's instructions to the letter, and that's all that he will do. Now, the reason that I can say this is because of what happens in that courtroom. One of those examples is this. 99% of all prosecution witnesses will have cross-examination brought down upon them by the defending attorneys. Lawyers create predetermined questions. If they say this, then we'll say this. If they say this, then we'll ask this question. It's what they do, and a large part of what I do. But you see, in this creature's case, in almost all of the prosecution witnesses, not one question was asked in cross towards any of the prosecution witnesses that you definitely would be asking questions to. And that is because dipshit here couldn't actually think of a question to ask them. And another one of the ways that we know this is because how much control he had over the lawyer in court. An example is this, that only when DC allowed that the witness was excused from being asked any cross.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hawes, for your appearance here today.
Cross-examination. No questions, Your Honor. Thank you, Dr. Hawes. You are excused.
That just a knife would, or maybe even more than one knife, could have inflicted these injuries.
Yes, ma'am.
Including the disarticulation.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all that I have. Thank you very much.
Cross-examination.
No questions.
And that is a very telling sign that this lawyer is not just a tool being used by DC in court, but is a projection of DC himself. Other evidence of this is that the defense never produced any evidence whatsoever to counter any of the prosecution evidence brought forward, as well as that the defense never called one witness to the stand, not even the love child. So indeed, what did the defense do when it came to defending Muppet in court? Well, now that brings us on to this episode's thought experiment. Yes, my DC subbies, a thought experiment. And today we'll use the vassal. This lawyer doesn't say a thing unless it comes straight from the DC himself. Not even a thought, word for word, I'd say. It's actually DC himself that's speaking. Because what you're about to hear will make you think, this lawyer is a fucking idiot. But you see, he's not. It's the DC. So, what a completely stupid thing is DC gonna say first? Why don't we start off with, there is no way I would have done this, because I was in a good mood.
That weekend, Joel Guy was outgoing, friendly, and happy in a way Michelle Tyler had never seen him before. Outgoing, friendly, and happy. That was not a man about to commit a homicide. Outgoing, friendly, and happy. You saw it in the picture from the front porch. Smiling, happy. That's who Joel Guy was that weekend. He was not someone planning on committing a murder. And remember the facts of the case. His father was stabbed at least 41 times, his mother at least 32 times. That is anger, that is rage, that is not happy and outgoing.
Genius. Utter genius, Junior. Oh, don't worry. It gets better. It gets so much better. Like, look at this one.
We heard family testimony that they planned to cut him off financially at Christmas. This was not Christmas. This was not when that was going to occur.
It's pure gold. Oh, DC here has told his lawyer, look, If I was going to murder my parents, I wouldn't have murdered them on Thanksgiving. I would have waited until Christmas when they cut me off. That's when I would have murdered them. In the words of a dead bug, you can't make this shit up. This next part's classic. Old junior genius, old Drench Mogwai, he thought he'd poke holes in the prosecution's evidence by bringing up DNA. And how did he do that? Oh, well, it's very simple. He says that they didn't do any DNA swabs on his bag or his book that was in his bag. I shit you not. Listen to this.
The notebook, they tell us, well, they did DNA on the outside of the notebook. So that means at some point, someone touched the outside of that notebook. What about DNA on the writing on the inside? When you write, your hand's often in contact with the paper. Touch DNA would be all over that. Is his DNA on the part where there's a writing? We didn't do that. Page at 5 pages, we could have done that. Hand on the paper when you're writing. They didn't do that. That's the thing that you want to know, isn't it?
No, not quite, eh? The thing I want to know is how pissed off are you that you've got to say whatever Junior tells you to say? How utterly pissed off are you about how stupid that he made you look? And Junior even went for the handwriting.
And on the notebook, they also did not bring in a handwriting sample to say, yes, this is his writing.
From his book, in his bag, in his room, that states everything about, oh, this is how I'm going to kill my parents and get my money. Yep, it is a genius plan. And what about his fingerprints being everywhere, like the murder weapons and on the bins and everywhere else? What did Junior come up for an answer to that question?
So the fact that his fingerprints are at some point on some object doesn't mean that that's necessarily related to this homicide.
J4. That's right. And of course, in these DC court cases, where the evidence, the overwhelming evidence, removes all reasonable doubt, in fact, it removes all doubt whatsoever, you can always end on this note.
We believe the state has not proven any of these charges beyond a reasonable doubt. We ask that you find Mr. Guy not guilty.
Guilty of first-degree premeditated murder of Joel Guy Sr. Guilty of first-degree premeditated murder of Lisa Guy.
Surprise, surprise. Apparently it was for him. Apparently he was in shock for days afterwards that he lost. And that is what makes this DC so much of a narcissist. So old Junior here, he got about 300 years, so he's never getting out. And that, my DC subbies, is the story of Joel Guy Jr., love child to the stars, the drenched Mogwai pretty boy, and the perfect example of a DC narcissist. In wrapping up this episode of Dumb Criminal, what I'd like to say is this. Upon doing the research upon this pathetic DC, I couldn't find one picture of these two, of where they didn't look just so completely in love. And that really sucks for all of us. Why? Because this DC, Joel Guy Jr., he not only took away the parents and these two beautiful people from their whānau, but he took away that love from our world. And it is right about now that we could do with all the love on this planet that we can get. And as I've said before in many of my videos, oh man, I wish we had precog. Why? Because maybe sometimes women might know that one of those sperm is going to be
outgoing, friendly, and happy.
And that they could choose to abort that defect. But of course, that would be up to them, the woman whose body it is, and not me, a guy. Because if I thought that was my decision on what a female does with her own body, then that could potentially make me one of these. And there's a lot of us out there, especially my DC subbies, which ain't gonna be one of them. Look, anyways, for those of you, those DC subbies that have stayed to the end, this message is for you. And now it is some info on the DC universe, so please enjoy this upgrade. If you know at least 2 of these words, then you should get the language cup. Like, if you guys are here, and you probably still will be, in 12 months, then you definitely will be coming to some important HUIs, meetings, with us as a team member or a supporter of the Safe Bars project. And in these HUIs are Aotearoans, Kiwis, New Zealanders for the less knowledgeable, and in Aotearoa we speak Aotearoan English. which is the same as American English, UK English, Australian English, and that is that the English that the people speak in these countries, our countries, it's English with words which have been changed to or replaced with words that the people of that country use. Like, it's not slang words or abbreviations, but actual words and their meanings. Now, most countries have about 20 of these words that make up their English. These words in Aotearoa English, a lot of them just happen to be Māori words, and they're beautiful words with beautiful meanings. Aotearoa English, I love it. And by the time we get to these hui's, my role as a team leader and project manager is to make sure that you, as a team member or a supporter, know every word that we say from both sides of the table. And how I'm going to do that is through the Language Cup. 20 everyday commonplace words that we are going to learn and teach. The Language Cup. Every time you drink coffee alone, you're a student, but anytime you drink coffee around people, you're now a tutor, and anyone around you will learn from you. Every time you drink from the Language Cup, Aotearoa English lesson is being taught. Every time you drink from the Language Cup, a lesson in Aotearoa English is being taught. We as a species learn faster when we learn together. That's a very big principle of the universe. And that is one of the most beautiful things I aroha about our species, together. So make sure you grab yourself a lesson or two and start learning and teaching today. The Language Cup.